honored once again to have my big brother, my respected brother, El Señor Marlon Weems, who is the author, the founder, the publisher of the Journeyman, a newsletter that one must subscribe to. I've learned a lot from my brother here. Well, today we're here not to discuss a whole lot of personal politics. We're not here to discuss a whole lot about all the financial genius of my brother here. We're here to discuss something that we must not let or allow it to change what we know needs to get done going forward. So without further ado, let me lay the floor out to my brother, Marlon. Marlon, talk to me. How you doing today, sir?
Dude, it's actually been kind of a rough morning because it's 9/11,
Talk to me.
and I was in New York on 9/11. So there's that. And I have really, I told you earlier, I was up to 3 o'clock last night. Just,
Yeah.
all the episode of yesterday just was, and, we're talking about Charlie Kirk. Everybody knows this.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and it was upsetting. And I was actually surprised because I did not like Charlie Kirk. But just as a human being, I wrote yesterday that I accidentally saw the video. I really was making an effort. Just from what I had heard, I knew it was going to be gruesome. But I have to be honest, I was still shocked because, it just was way worse than I expected. And so that stuck with me. My daughter saw it at her work. People were, had it on a loop. And, so you get these mixed emotions of, boy, you don't want to see that happen to anybody, right? And then I'm listening to the news, you turn on MSNBC. I don't subscribe to any of the cable news anymore because I just gave up on them. And they seem to be, well, first of all, from the beginning, trying to both sides it. Like, there's all this violence on the left too. And I couldn't tell who the individual was that they had on. It was someone other than they normally have. And
it was a terrorist specialist. Yeah.
Right. And he's the guy that sort of came out of 9/11. So I suspect that may have been why they had him. And I'm trying to remember the name of the group that he's with.
I want to take in a minute as you keep telling me your narrative.
Sure. And so, he was saying, he was just both sidesing it.
Let me just say, it is Chris O'Leary, who is a senior VP of global operations of Sufan Group, because I immediately I'm going to let you finish and tell you about it.
I'm aware of the Sufan Group because of 9/11. I believe, the namesake, this guy was really close to the action, during 9/11. So all that to say, I was just really disturbed by him trying to set the narrative that everybody's being violent out here and they need to quit. And I'm thinking, well, heck, we got mayor or, governors, folks trying to kidnap governors, folks breaking in Nancy Pelosi's house, not to even mention the whole January 6th. Now tell me on the left-hand side of the ledger, what is the comparison to that? Because I don't know that there is one. I'm not saying that nobody on the left does anything that is violent in nature, but typically it is not the brand of Democrats to be encouraging violence in this way. And so thank you, McNelly. The Minnesota politicians getting killed in their house. I mean, killed woman, her husband, and their dog. I mean, I don't recall hearing a lot of outrage from Republicans. I heard a lot of silence. So anyway, all that just really, I don't know what I expected.
Let me tell you what
I just wanted something honest,
Well, the first person I thought about contacting about this was you, because I know that you live in a hybrid environment. I also know that you have gone through a lot of the stuff that I've gone through.
Oh, yeah.
And I told you when I asked you to come on, this is not a matter of bashing. This is not a matter of somehow or encouraging. We don't believe in violence at all. We believe in none of that. But what's important, what is very important, is that we don't fool ourselves into believing something that that is not. And what the mainstream media did and is doing over these last few hours is a false scenario of what's actually occurring. But beforehand, I want to go back to the person you brought in, Mr. Chris O'Leary. Great guy, brought on. He's a fighter against terrorism. Supposedly, he's an independent kind of a guy. But he goes on TV, and as they're talking about terrorism and the violence in the country, without cueing, without question, he says, people are not going to like this, but historically, domestic terrorism has come from the left.
I heard him say that.
It is a demonstrably false statement. And I immediately cut that video and created a blog, a Substack article about it immediately. Why did I do that? Because this is how narratives get formed and the people get ill-informed, Marlon. And it's like, this is too new to allow this narrative to creep up that says somehow, and for those of you in the chat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that article with the video and everything in that chat that you guys can go take a look at. I just threw it into the chat. The reason I did that, Marlon, is it's a lie. First of all, it is a lie. And there are examples of from the time we were founded, where from the time of this country's foundation, it has always been the right. And yes, there was a time the Democratic Party was the party of the right.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't understand that because they think, well, look at what the Dixiecrats did. I said, we know, but things change.
Believe me, I know.
There you go. Exactly. So what I did is I wrote that article and listed, I went to ChatGPT, got all the information that we got, listed all the events that have occurred both on the left and the right. And I tell you, I also went ahead and asked another engine. I said, give me the body count, because I wanted to make sure we were right. And the body count of what the right has done terroristically, domestically, are orders of magnitude over anything done by anyone that can be considered left. And these are things I think we have got to put out there because these guys own the narrative. And I don't know if you know who Matthew Dowd is, but Matthew Dowd is a commentator on MSNBC. He got fired yesterday for telling the truth.
Yeah.
For saying something similar, for simply saying Charlie Kirk promoted a whole lot of hate. I mean,
I said Charlie Kirk, in a post yesterday that while I didn't agree with, I really didn't like the guy. And it's pure coincidence. Yesterday, my wife and my daughter and I were on our way to get some lunch.
Yes.
And, I'm on Substack and I'm typing and I was about to post a video of Charlie Kirk doing one of these, debate things. And there was a young guy, I recognize him from YouTube, and he was on the other side and he had just shut him down. It was about DEI. Kirk's contention was name another group that has benefited from DEI other than Black people. I mean, that's like a softball, right? And I thought it was so ignorant, and I had written something to that effect. And I showed the video to my daughter as my wife's driving. And then we got to talking about something else. And literally within a minute, she said, "Oh my God, one of my friends just texted me, Charlie Kirk just got shot." I thought she was kidding because, so needless to say, I didn't push out that video. So after, when I saw the video of what happened to him, I told people, I was talking to my brother and a couple of folks online. I'm like, this dude's dead. He was probably dead before he hit the ground. They just are keeping it under wraps, probably got to tell his family and all of this. And it was a confusing feeling because I have no respect for this guy. But as a human, do I want to see something like that happen to anyone?
No, not at all.
Of course not. And so that's the thing that I kind of wrestle with. And I went back, and I'll just kind of wrap it. I went back and I was looking, because it's almost like my brain was like, you don't like this guy, but I needed some proof to prove to myself that he was as bad as I thought he was. And it's easy to find, right?
Look, I tell you, Marlon, And this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this chat, with the expectation that a lot of folks would listen to this chat and also move this chat forward.
Mhm.
Because as you mentioned, two things can occur at the same time.
Mhm.
We know the guy was an evil being, but no human being deserves to be sniped away. No human being. That's what we believe. I am a progressive. I assume you are, but I'm a progressive.
I am. I would, and I'm a Democrat for the time being. We'll see how that
Right.
goes, but
So,
yeah, I would
so
consider myself a progressive for
So
sure.
we believe in humanity. We believe in, we don't want, in fact, the fight that we have, the things that we support are not for one group or the other. The things we support is for everybody. And whether people like what we support or not, guess what? They enjoy it when they get it. We fought for Social Security.
Absolutely.
Republicans and Democrats love it. We fought for the minimum wage. Republicans and Democrats love it. We fought for SNAP. They love it. All of them love it. So we don't fight for things that are not for everybody. But that said, that's not what we're about. It turns out that this morning I started the program, and as usual, you would have some conservatives that called into the program. And they were trying to spin the narrative that MSNBC and ABC and CBS and all the others are spinning. And that narrative is that somehow this guy wanted civil discourse. This guy wanted conversations. And what I try to explain is a conversation that goes on to a campus and tell women you are there to get a man, and after that have children and take care of the family. That's no conversation. A conversation that says, when I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, and this is where I say this materially affects us.
Exactly.
You and I have been used to, because of our age, being followed in stores. You and I are key. You as a stock analyst and all the great things in the financial sector. Your intellect has been questioned because of your pigmentation. As an engineer, my qualifications have been questioned because of pigmentation. And we know that the younger people have been growing out of those fallacies. The younger people have been starting to realize that that was hogwash. I want to know your talent. I want to know what you're able to accomplish. The young people have been finding that we have a Charlie Kirk, rest his soul. We have a Charlie Kirk that was there to indoctrinate the next generation on the lies that actually marginalized people like you and me, people like women that are listening to this right now, people like the underprivileged listening and watching us right now. That is his legacy. And for them to try to rewrite his legacy on MSNBC and Fox News, it does a disservice to all of us, because what it does is it deifies somebody that has definitely caused more harm in our political system than not. And if we start to look at this as an embrace of this person for fear that people are going to say, you are supporting what happened to him, two things can be right at the same time. No, we don't support murder. No, we don't support harm. But no, don't we support harming other people as well, or demeaning women, etc.
So one of the things that like I said yesterday, I spent a lot of time just because guys like Charlie Kirk, I tend to just sort of remove them from my, from my feed, so to speak. And occasionally he'll pop up on YouTube, when somebody, as they say, dunks on him or whatever. So I wanted to go back and just sort of remind myself of what kind of guy we're talking about. And I ran across, the article, but I remember seeing the video of an event that he did. I think it was in Idaho. And, there Q&A, and he gets to a guy, and the guy says something along the lines of, well, this is going to be an unusual question. And the subject appeared to be, stop the steal, right? That the election was stolen. That was the subject. And this guy's question to Charlie Kirk was, when do we get to start killing these folks? How many times are we going to let them steal elections before we can start killing? To his credit, Charlie Kirk said, hey, I'm going to denounce that. That was his response.
Good.
But then he continued, and instead of telling that guy how wrong that way of thinking was, he said, see, that's just what they want you to do. They
Mhm.
want you to go out and do something so they can take your guns from you. Not that you don't need to do that ever. No conversation like the one we're having. He immediately turned the conversation to blame Democrats, progressive, the left, however you want to look at it. It's them that's making you feel this way. So then I go on. Next thing I run across, he's on a campus, and it's actually a young Black lady that is asking him why it is he's pushing for Derek Chauvin, the guy who, murdered George Floyd. He's been found guilty of this. So there it is. And he proceeded to justify this man being killed in the way that he was. He said this guy, that was allowed for him to put his knee on the man's neck. And if he hadn't been a drug addict, he wouldn't have died. So this man should be released from prison. So I don't know how other people feel about this, but to me, that just foments a level of disdain for the other, hatred. And it's, he comes across with this baby face like he's a really nice guy. And and what they're trying to do now, and I heard on MSNBC, a fellow who was at the scene, and he must have been, this was in Utah. He
Mhm.
was I think a former state senator, may have been a current state senator. And you would have thought he was talking about the sweetest guy on earth.
Yeah, you're
This
talking
is on
about yeah.
MSNBC.
I
And,
saw it.
I got it. Look, maybe you were friends with him, but we have to recognize the things that are being said ultimately lead to this kind of upheaval, one way or the other. And this is what got the guy on MSNBC fired yesterday.
Mhm.
Look, you can't, I don't care left, right, center, whatever. If you're going around and you're picking on the people who are the weakest and the most marginalized and the poorest. And in the meantime, by the way, I pointed this out, it's been a couple of months ago, and it was in a totally different context. In 2015, Charlie Kirk's little nonprofit was not that big. And I just looked because the point I was making was how the right dumps money on guys like Charlie Kirk and elevates this kind of performative hate, whatever you want to say. And it went from, I don't know, maybe six figures of income, low six figures. And then last year,
Nine figures.
it's in the millions. I mean,
Hundreds of millions.
oh yeah, it's up there. And, it's money coming from all the places you can imagine. And then you have guys like us that are out here, with our little megaphones shouting into the abyss, right? And I mean, this is, it to me is almost the unfortunate, sort of the end of where this always ends up.
I want to read something that Mac Nelly Torres put out here. She said, "Did you read this obit in the New York Times? I'm a journalist and currently independent, and I'm stunned at the awful way the media is covering all this. It is unethical and so wrong." And I assume she's talking about the glorification, the deification that they're doing of this guy. This guy was a promoter of hate. But then again, this is the same media that gives Donald Trump plausibility. So, here is a guy that is that a judge has called a rapist, that's been convicted several times, that has grabbed on women's stuff, that have done all these things, and we treat him like a normal human being. The mainstream media does. So we have to by now, and this is self-serving, but to both of us. Yesterday, when that guy went on MSNBC and immediately told all the MSNBC listeners that most of the over the last several decades, centuries, most of the think that most of the political violence came from the left. Independent media had to correct that immediately, and that's why I came out and said, "Hey, let me get the information, starting from slavery reconstruction, the labor movement, and all of those have subcategories."
But not all the lynchings,
Right. The modern right.
I mean, where's he coming from with this?
Yes, the modern right wing extremists, even recently, we're not even talking about, well, it used to be that way. it continues being that way. And then he has a list of the portions from the left. Very small. We have things like the Weather Underground that used to create a lot of bombs, but make sure the bombs didn't kill people. The anarchist violence in the late 19th and early 20th century. And present day, we just have a few. Antifa, even though some of Antifa hasn't really been Antifa, proven that it's actually been the right acting as whom they want to call Antifa. Now, I want to give a big kudos to our brother at I think it's Sateo, because what he did as they continued to broaden, whoops, like that happened again. And the reason I want to do that is what he did is he came out with a list, and a list of the left wing, or I should say, a list of the right wing attacks. And he came out and he said, please don't forget Melissa Hartman, the senator, or the state lawmaker Hartman, and her husband Mark. Don't forget about the attempted assassination of Josh Shapiro. Don't forget the 4 Democratic elected officials that the shootings of. Don't forget Nancy Pelosi and her husband. Don't forget what they tried to do to Mike Pence. Don't forget that they murdered Judge Esther Salas's son. Don't forget that they tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Don't forget of the pipe bombs for Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Don't forget about Heather Heyer, who they drove and killed. And you go ahead and you can bring the list down.
I mean, this is like recent history.
Crickets.
You know, the other part of that, man, if I can just interject, is this. Don't forget the President of the United States.
Yes.
We're talking about a guy who said, if I don't win, maybe I need to get my Second Amendment people involved.
There you go.
Okay? He's calling people vermin. He's practically quoting Mein Kampf.
Yes.
Okay? He's holding. Do you remember during the run up to the election, they literally held an event in Madison Square Garden that looked like the Nazi event that happened back in the 20s, 30s, whenever. And it's like, are y'all kidding me right now?
It was such, and the funny thing about it, when I saw the Madison Square Garden event, and then I watched the coverage in the mainstream media, they normalized it.
They believe that their role is to just observe, like you see in these science fiction movies where there's this person from some galaxy and they're just there to observe and not interject anything into it. And I have a different view of what the media's job is. I think it should be about what is true, not just repeating what is said. Okay. Yeah, you quote somebody, and then I think there's an obligation to say something, not just stand there and let it happen. Going back to the guy from the Sufine group, what really got my attention from the beginning was that he had already determined, with no evidence at all, that this was someone from the left who had shot this. We don't know. We have no idea who it was. Maybe it was, but we don't know. And so I thought it was irresponsible he was on Katie Tur's show.
It was on Katie Tur, yeah.
She never said, well, we don't know yet. The assumption was immediately that it was somebody from the left that was mad at Charlie Kirk, and here we go.
Look, let me tell you more than that. And I want I want to answer Mac Nelly Torres. She says, my question is, how do we combat all of this? I'm going to tell you, and some of it is going to be self-serving. We put out a lot of stuff out there. Substack, and I'm not talking about the folks from Substack that came from the networks and all of that, because in a lot of ways, what we have is a lot of folks from the networks that have been fired or whatever doing the same thing here on Substack.
Yeah.
We do stuff out of the box. Take a look at our stuff. We're all over the place, but we do stuff out of the box. We need your support. I'll be frank as hell with you. We need more. These guys come on this network and get 10,000 paid subscriptions right away. We get a few.
I read an article a few months ago that Jim Acosta had 250,000 paid subscribers.
Yes.
It was an interview with him. He acknowledged it. That was months ago.
That's more than he made likely on the salary that he left. I'm not talking about his retainer, but on the such. But what we are saying, the thing is this: when we heard that misinformation on mainstream media, in less than an hour, I had the correction with the research and the videos on Substack. That's what we do.
I mean, we're
No fear.
basically, I look at in a lot of ways the way guys like you and I function. It's almost like a rapid response team,
Exactly.
in a campaign. Mine tends to be more related to the economy and finance,
Right.
except for in times like this. So, and I haven't had a chance to do it this morning just because it's 9/11, and I just need to take a breath. On this particular day. But when economic numbers come out, people that follow me can usually depend on me sort of breaking down, okay, here's what these numbers are, but here's in plain English, here's what
Hmm.
this is about. Here's why you should care. And to a large extent, we do it for free. All my content is free.
Right.
When I do things like this, maybe the paying subscribers will get it pardon me, a day or a few hours earlier than the free folks. But a lot of it I've blasted all out because what's the point if you do it other ways? But yeah, it's kind of hard to look at some of the guys that have realized, oh wait, I can just get on Substack and bring my hundreds of thousands of folks, and yeah, so
The thing about it is, let me tell you, I've actually seen some of our own stuff being duplicated
don't get
in
me
other words,
started,
we
man.
go ahead and hunt this stuff out, and I look at it and I'm like, okay. And
Why not
you
just
could have
invite
changed,
me on your show?
you could have changed that word,
Yeah, I
but
have I have
but
seen that for years.
yeah, but here's the thing. Getting back to the subject at hand with Kirk, what I think most people are here and want to hear. We are definitely not here to bash Kirk at all, as far as being getting harmed, being murdered, being assassinated. But what we cannot allow this to be is some turning point to create a false narrative. We can't allow this to be a turning point for a false narrative. Charlie Kirk was not a good person. Charlie Kirk was not good to women. Charlie Kirk was not good to people of color. Charlie Kirk was not good to people who had different sexual orientations. Charlie Kirk was there to deliver a message for his master. Charlie Kirk became a money loaded person because in having somebody that they figured was a bit charismatic, they could invest tens of millions into Charlie to indoctrinate the next generation to be hateful towards most of you. That is the reality. And this is not to speak ill of the dead, but if the dead, the now dead has done something that harmed the people, and I this morning on my KPFT 90.1 FM show, what I told folks is I said, look, I have a hard time because I have to turn on the TV and listen to this. And then I have to live in my skin and go to the store. I have to live in my skin and understand how I am initially viewed. I have to live in my skin and remember when he talks about DEI, that as an engineer, I had to overperform. When he talks about DEI as a radio broadcast host, I had to overperform. Not because of internals, but because of what people like him told others were the truth. When he jumped on a plane and say, when I see a black pilot, I don't see somebody that flew with the Tuskegee at people who never lost a plane. What I see is I'm fearful because it may be a DEI hire. The thing about it is
Listen,
I'm going to
man.
tell, let me just say this real quick.
Sure.
I'm going to tell the audience at large, if you have a pilot that is black or minority, if you have any one of people's in these professions, realize that they had to work twice as hard. So your hands are, you are in very good hands. Continue, my brother.
Well, you know my story, man. I started out in Arkansas as one of the very few African Americans in financial services, right? And then and it's funny because I can remember I was so unusual or abnormal to the situation I was in. I had been working at this one firm for probably 5 years, and I get to work early one morning, and there was a white kid. I believe was an intern, and this was when they first came out with the key cards, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
had a key card. He's 20 feet or so ahead of me, and he had a key card, and he went in. And the door was open, so I just grabbed the door and came in behind him. and this kid whirled around on me. Can I help you? He was so sure that
You
I
didn't
did not
belong.
belong there.
Yeah.
Okay. And as I recall, I kind of went off on him a little bit. But those little, I guess you call them microaggressions now, right?
I don't like to use
I
those
don't know
terms.
what, to me, is just racism. Okay.
Exactly. Those are nice terms to sound intellectual
Yeah.
or
And,
whatever.
when I was, and I always make the point that, yeah, you got racism in the South, but you got it. I spent almost exactly half
Hmm.
of my career in the South and the latter half in working on Wall Street. And I had a guy who was asking for my business. I ran a trading desk, and his product wasn't as good as what I was doing on my desk. And I said to him, help me. Why do I need this? And his
Hmm.
response to me, I mean, these are the words that came from his mouth. Well, y'all are a black firm, so you don't really know how to trade. I was with a colleague and he kicked me under the table. He was so sure I was going to punch this guy, right?
Right.
I did not punch him. But those are the kind of things that happen without, I mean, this guy didn't even realize he was offending me. It was so natural for him
And
to
again,
think that.
that is why what we're talking about is so important. With that event that you just spoke about, you told me that privately before. I remember. We had I developed software as well, and we were developing a
Sure.
software for band directors. And we went into partnership. Me and a band director got into partnership. I wrote the software. He was sort of marketing the software. And we went to our to the fund to the where you go, to the place where you go ahead and try to sell this to other band directors. And my wife was there, his wife was there, and they're talking, and he's talking to a prospect, and he looks and he tells the prospect, "I don't have the answer for that. Let me check my programmer." And so I am the one who programmed it, right? So let me check my programmer. I wasn't the business owner or anything. Let me check the programmer. My wife got so upset because I was the one pushing the program, all that kind of stuff, and not only that, wrote it. I was a partner, but I was just the programmer, right?
Sure.
And I had to explain to her in business, it's the other, there's a lot that we let slide
Well, you have to, because
for
if you
business.
don't,
You
then
don't
you're
get
the
the bit
black man that can't handle
right.
himself. I'll tell you what, man, and I know we're getting a little far afield, but I was at a event in New York, and this was in the Plaza Hotel, okay? And I took two or three of them. It was an event that Goldman Sachs does,
Hmm.
or used to do. And it was basically they were trying to foster business with minority and Latino
Right.
owned, or women owned, minority owned firms, and my firm was one of them. So we're in the Plaza Hotel, and it's me and two other black gentlemen that worked on my trading desk. We're in $1,000 suits, dude. We're not showing up looking like we came from the hood, and we're on an elevator in the Plaza Hotel. We the event was like on the top floor or something. So we're coming down, and the door opens, and it's me, three black men, well dressed, and we're just, minding our business. The door opens, and on another floor, there was some sort of an event that was like black tie. So the door opens, and there's a man in a tuxedo, a white fella, and I assume his wife, older people. She has like a mink stole on. So these people, they're kicking it,
Hmm.
right? And the door opens, and she grabs his arm like, oh my God, we're gonna get robbed. And I mean, we looked at each other like, is she serious right now? I mean, she got on the elevator, and you would have thought someone had thrown her into a prison cell. Okay. So just the reaction. And we laughed it off, because what else are you gonna do?
Now, you said, we're kind of taking this off left field, but to the audience, I want to say these are the stories that we thought we wouldn't have to relive. But
Yeah,
with what Charlie Kirk promoted with DEI and us getting getting some sort of a false advantage as opposed to having the door open that was once closed. There's a difference, right? There are two ways to look at DEI, right?
sure.
Bringing in incompetent people to fulfill a quota, or opening the door for people that the door was previously shut from. Each of those do things. They bring people
Let me tell
in.
you something, Egberto.
Yes.
So when I started working at what was then, and I assume still is, well, at the time, it was the largest investment firm not located on Wall Street. They had never hired a Black person to do what I did.
Yes.
I dealt in mortgage-backed securities. So we're talking, this is a long time ago. I can guarantee you they did not hire me because they were trying to fill some Black quota. I can tell you when they hired me, none of the sales assistants wanted to work for me because, as they put it, they weren't raised that way. In other words, to take orders from a Black person. The woman who did end up being my assistant happened to be Black. She didn't even want to be my assistant because if the white girls didn't want me, well, why should she have to take me? They gave her a raise
To come to you.
to come to me. So that ain't my brother. Okay.
It is funny because those of us who look, when I was younger and I just got into engineering, and my first engineering job, I remember a reporter here in Houston that we used to have dinner with all of the time. He said, "You're an affirmative action hire," and I would say, like, "No way!" I had a chip on my shoulder. No, but here's the thing that I learned to accept. He was right. I was an affirmative action hire. I was the only Black engineer on this entire floor in this oil company, the only one. Yes, I was an affirmative. Now the question was I qualified? Yes, I remember. Let me tell you what happened. Okay, the woman who hired me, she was a professional engineer, and she hired me. And after she fought to get me on, they interviewed me so many times, more than they normally interview another engineer, to make sure I could do the job, right? So the VP of the department called me in. The VP, not the manager, the VP called me in, sat me down, and he said, "I don't know why Pat likes you so much, but I'm going to tell you something. If you don't work out in 6 months, you are out of here, and I don't want to hear a damn thing about affirmative action." That was my first job out of college.
Egberto,
But wait, I'm not done. I'm not
going to
done.
believe this. Go ahead, man.
That's
I'm
the
sorry.
first thing. That's the first notion I got, and then I said, "Okay, my project that Pat gave me was a huge project. Was some for data acquisition loop. I never forgot in an oil well, and I finished a 6-month project. It was a 6-month project. I finished it in 2 months, and Pat walked into my office and she said, "You don't worry about a damn thing that guy had to say about, what if it doesn't work out in 6 months." You're here. A 6-month project done in two months. I tell this story, and by the way, somebody said we need to tell all those stories. Actually, I did it in my book. It's called Tribulation of a Latino Caribbean Man. I tell all these stories from business.
And you know
to,
what, dude? I'm writing a book too, and I'm
you
naming
got to.
names. I mean,
Because
you
people don't believe these stories, and I itemize these. It's like, we are talking about Charlie Kirk, right? And here's the problem: Charlie Kirk is bringing all the stuff, all the crap we had to take, Marlon. He's teaching a new generation to think like that. There's no EI isn't for people who are not qualified. Women aren't going to college just to get a husband. Women are just as competent as men. To tell you the truth, right now, I would like more women leadership because men are not doing a very good job at it. It's
Someone asked
amazing.
for the title of your book to be put in the chat, by the way.
Oh, okay. Let me do that. Yeah.
So I have to say, man, the story you just told, the reason I laughed was because the job that I was just referencing, I think I got interviewed 4 or 5 times by different people because nobody wanted to pull the trigger, right? and I ended up meeting with the head of the fixed income department, the bond department, who at the time was the former governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton. For folks who may not know, Bill Clinton had been governor, and then he lost, and then he won again. And the guy who he beat became, he landed as the head of the bond department at this firm. So I ended up meeting with him, and I said to him, finally.
You said finally?
No. I said, I couldn't see how I was going to go any further. I'm at the top. Who else is there to meet with? And I finally said to him, look, I've got the numbers. I had a record of production, sales, and I had clients and all this from other places I've been. And I said to him, hire me. And if I don't work out in 6 months, fire me. And he just kind of sat back, and I guess he figured that was a good a good bet to make, right? And that's how I got hired.
I mean,
So it's very similar to what you
it's
just,
the same thing.
except I just put it out there. Look, man, give me a
Well,
shot, and if I don't work
you
out,
were old enough then, Marlon, to put it out there. I just
oh yeah,
wanted a
it was
damn
not my
job.
first job. It was it wasn't my first job, but I was just kind of arrogant, in that way. And some might say I still am, but
Well,
you know,
but and again, this is when we're talking, we're telling these stories, right? But everything that Charlie Kirk stands for is against. It brings back those sour feelings that hurt because you and I are macho. I don't want to say macho men. Women, we're not macho men. We are just men.
well,
Okay,
I'm confident in my ability, and
that's what Lisa
and
just
it
said.
and it
Confident. You're
hits
right.
it
Right.
hits me when, because I don't want that. I don't want that for my kids, right? My
Hmm.
daughter just graduated college,
Yes.
and it's bad enough that there are no opportunities, that,
Yes.
just the idea of buying a new car is daunting.
Yes.
So on top of all of that, we need this too.
Yeah. So, but to kind of getting ready to close her down before we finish. I think again, folks, we definitely do not sanction, do not support what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Of course not.
Of course not. But what we also do not sanction or support is a deification of this man. This was not a good man. And if we don't push back on what the mainstream media is attempting to do with Charlie, it harms all of us. All of us. And I'm not just talking about these two black men on the screen. I'm talking about all of us. Because what
Because
it does,
you know what?
go ahead.
Because nobody was spared.
Right.
Trans people, gay people, the
Women,
LGBTQ community. I mean, there was nobody that this guy skipped over in terms of, just punching down on people.
right. It is sad, but Marlon, uh, first of all, I'm going to give my little closing statement and then ask you to uh, uh, do the same before we finish up here. And that is, I want to thank all of you for listening. Want to ask all of you to share our stuff, both Marlon's stuff and my stuff, because we do have a lot to offer and we do have perspectives that many times open the minds of many. We work hard at this. And that's why, and we love what we do. I mean,
Oh
Marlon
yeah.
said we do it, all of my stuff is free. And the reason why is that sometimes I try to put firewalls on it, but I want people to
I
know the
never
stuff.
can figure it out, man. I mean, I
Yeah.
know how to do it, but I don't know, man. Should
I
I?
want,
It's too
I want people
complicated,
to know
right?
the stuff, Marlon. I want everybody to read the stuff, right? So more
Exactly.
so than anything else, I want people to read the stuff and say, because I am filled or satisfied, I'm willing to be a paid subscriber on you. And by the way, for those, I did a plug on my book here, which I wasn't intending to do, but you can read that. Anybody who become paid subscribers, read all my books. I have about 5 books. You can read all my books for free on Substack. So that's a good reason to subscribe to my to be a paid subscriber. But we do this again because we have something important to talk about, and we know that the mainstream media is becoming very, very deficient. So check us out, Marlon.
Everything you just said, ditto. But just to add one thing, I mean, I have been on Substack for over 5 years. So
Mm-hmm.
before they had this platform, when it was just a website to do your emails, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I started, I didn't have a big list of followers. I had just my contacts that were on my phone, my LinkedIn contacts, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember for the first couple of years, every time I would publish something, the unsubscribes would just, flow because I was pissing off somebody, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it took me, those years to sort of find my people, or for them to
Right.
find me, however you want to look at it. And so I was looking yesterday actually, and I have now over 11,000 followers, or subscribers rather.
Subscribe. Yeah.
A few hundred are paid subscribers. I never really
Mm-hmm.
thought it would get, there. And so I first, it's Weems, Karen. It's Weems, kind of a weird name. But all that to say, I'm kind of a goal oriented person. So I would like to get to 20,000, right? And I guess my ask would be subscribe. And of course, if you can afford to pay, I would love for you to do it. It certainly helps with the resources. And guys like me and Egberto, there are no Koch brothers, trying to help us do what we do. These so-called good billionaires are not trying to hear about us saying they should pay more in taxes. They're not really trying to help us. It mystifies me to this minute why the Democratic establishment does not see value in us. But, a lot of things about the Democratic establishment mystify me. So, all that said, I just think that if you are moved by what we're about and agree with what we're saying, which I think a lot of people do, support us in any way you can.
Absolutely. Well, look, Marlon, it's been a pleasure and an honor. I always enjoy speaking to you. Like I tell you all of the time, I learn a lot from you. I think what we're doing is so important, especially in these times.
Yes.
Especially in these times, folks. If you want information on bias, we're here. We're here. Please consider us. And
I
Marlon,
would say that I'm opinion supported by facts.
there you go. I love that. I love that. Opinion supported by facts. Anyway, folks, we're going to close this baby out. Thank you so kindly for all the folks that are listening right now. We love you from the depths of our heart. Thank you for being here and join us. Thank you. All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.